Welcome back to the Secondhand Club. My name is Gregory, and in today's video we are going back in our series of releases of watches and wonders of 2022, and we take a deeper look at the watches that Rolex has released. But before we dive into it, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us put out content talking watches and grow the channel. Join us also on Instagram, where we post daily watch content. Please also know that if you are on the market to sell your watch, we offer the most competitive consignment fee rate of the industry, with a flat rate of only 3%, no matter the value of your watch. On the other hand, if you're looking to source your next timepiece, feel free to contact us or check the inventory on our website, thesecondhandclub.com, or email us directly. I will leave all the information in the description down below. Now that this is done, let's get into it, because we have a lot to talk about. Rolex dropped their teaser a few days before the beginning of the show, and everybody was going on with their predictions about what was coming up. What I can say is that I ended up surprised, but also somehow a bit disappointed. It's a weird feeling and a bitter taste that only Rolex knows to provide. I'm going to start with the new AirKing release. At first glance, the watch looks identical to last year, but when you look closer, you can find big differences. Basically, the fundamentals are still there. The new AirKing, which has a reference 126900, still measures 40mm in diameter, still has a stainless steel case, and retains the overall same spirit, with a very distinctive dial we've come to expect from this model. There are some updates, starting with the movement, but also some changes to the case and the dial. We could call it a pilot's watch with a sporty feeling. The 40mm oyster steel case has mostly brushed flat surfaces and polished sides. To match the recent launches of the brand, the proportions of the lugs and the center of the case have been updated too. A bit thinner to give a contemporary feel, and the bezel is still smooth and polished. The case back retains its fluted profile and screws down, and so does the twin lock crown, ensuring the 100-meter water resistance. The watch is also topped by a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating. The most significant evolution is on the right side of the watch, as the crown is now protected by an integral crown guard, giving the case a more robust and professional look. As a tribute to aviation, the goal of the watch is to be fast and easy to read. As such, the new AirKing keeps its lacquered black dial with a large white printed Arabic numerals and a set of classic hands in white gold. The 3, 6, and 9 numerals are white gold applied on the dial and filled with chromolite, and so is the triangle at 12 o'clock. Finally, the colors that made the watch special have been kept, with the yellow printed crown and the Rolex lettering and central seconds hand in green. From the dial perspective, one of the biggest changes is the added 0 in front of the 5 to rebalance the entire watch. It seems really more pleasing to the eye. The AirKing 126900 is worn on a 3-link oyster bracelet, fully brushed on flat surfaces with polished flanks. It is closed by an oyster lock folding safety clasp with EasyLink comfort extension that gives a room to adjust the bracelet by approximately 5mm. Inside of the watch is the modern caliber 3230, which is of course produced in-house and superlative chronometer certified. It's equipped with a Chronenergy escapement that beats at 4 Hz and stores up to 70 hours of power reserve. Its precision is -2 +2 seconds per day, and the watch has a 5 years international warranty. Now, let's move on to the watch that everybody was talking about during Watches and Wonders. You probably know which one I'm talking about. The brand new GMT-Master II, the reference 126720 VT-NR. The GMT-Master II is the basic, highly practical travel watch by Rolex, and one that has been in the collection since 1982. We've seen several variants already, all following the familiar Rolex code of design. But this year Rolex switches it up significantly, and nobody was really expecting this. We still get the same overall architecture with a 40mm stainless case with a brushed and polished finish. However, and this is something that becomes immediately apparent by the images, the crown guard, and the date are moved to the left-hand side of the case. And the bidirectional rotating bezel is fitted with a new combination of color, black and green. A sapphire crystal with cyclop lens covers the dial with a solid screw-in case back that hides the movement and ensures a 100-meter water resistance. In terms of movements, nothing really changes as it is still fitted with in-house caliber 3285. It is the latest generation movement construction by Rolex with no less than 10 patents. This COSC certified chronometer movement has an automatic winding system, a core energy escapement and a parachrome hairspring. It ticks at a rate of 28,800 vibrations per hour and offers a very good autonomy of 70 hours. The Rolex Oyster Perpetual GMT-Master II is presented on a 3-link Oyster bracelet, but is also available on a Jubilee version. On the Oyster Steel version, like usual, the outer links are brushed with polished center links. Naturally, this comes with an Oyster Lock safety clasp and extension system. On the contrary to all of those self-proclaimed watch experts that you can find on YouTube and that like bashing on Rolex releases, I personally like it. As a left-handed watch wearer, I think that it is an historical piece from Rolex, and as from my knowledge, it is the first time that Rolex releases a professional watch with a left crown for regular production. It is known that Rolex produced left-handed day-dates and GMT Masters in very small numbers as early as the 1940s and 1950s, but it was more likely by request only. Is it really what Rolex needed? I don't think so. Do I think that they could have released something new, like a complete brand new professional model? Of course. But honestly, I think this is a cool watch and I like the black and green. We have one version landing in our showroom in May, so stay tuned for a full in-hand review of the watch on the wrist. We are now continuing with the sports watches and the release of the new Yacht Master 42. The Rolex Yacht Master is a grail watch for so many different reasons. Personally, it's not one of my favorite sports watches, but for 2022, the Yacht Master, which was initially launched in 1992, has become the brand's luxurious nautical watch, and it sees a new model added to its collection. The last evolution of the Yacht Master appeared in 2019 in a new 42mm case and in white gold, which was the reference 226659. And as we could expect for a brand that favors slow evolution over big changes, like the 42mm white gold version, the new yellow gold model is fitted with a black bidirectional rotating bezel with a Cerachrome insert, Rolex latest generation automatic movement, and of course a black rubber Oyster Flex bracelet. The 42mm Oyster case of the new Yacht Master is made of a solid 18-karat yellow gold block and is waterproof to a depth of 100 meters. The really distinctive bidirectional rotating bezel features a matte black Cerachrome insert with a raised and mirror polished graduation and numerals. Developed and patented by Rolex, the Cerachrome is a hard ceramic material that is practically scratch-proof, corrosion and UV resistant. The matte black ceramic has been sandblasted to provide a more technical contemporary finish and provides the background for the raised black numerals marking 0 to 60 minutes. Like all Yacht Masters, the case is featuring a triplock winding crown and the dial protected by a sapphire crystal with a date located at 3. The black lacquer dial, which reinforces the sober aesthetic of this Rolex Yacht Master 42, features applied yellow gold hour markers, triangular, round and rectangular, that are treated with Rolex's chromolite that emits a long-lasting blue glow in the dark. The hallmark hour hand, the minutes hand and the central seconds are also crafted in gold with the same luminescent treatment as the hour markers. Now let's move on to the classic watches. Rolex adds for the first time a fluted bezel to the platinum version of the day-date. That might sound like a minor update, but this is Rolex and this is probably one of the most known and iconic watches as the world's first wristwatch indicating the date and the day of the week in a separate aperture. The Rolex Day-Date was introduced in 1956 and the added day of the week back then was seen as a major innovation. Today, the day of the week might be a pretty standard function, but because Rolex was the first with this complication, it cemented its name for being innovative. Coupled with the looks of the watch, which is often referred to as the president's watch, the day-date is imprinted in people's mind across the globe. The watch is equipped with the caliber 3255, which has a longer power reserve of 70 hours thanks to Rolex core energy escapement. This escapement combines high energy efficiency and is also insensitive to magnetic fields because it's made of nickel phosphorus. Of course, the movement is equipped with the blue parachrome hairspring, which is not only insensitive to magnetism, but has also up to 10 times more precision than a traditional hairspring in case of shocks. The Day-Date 40 comes in the very recognizable oyster case measuring 40 mm in diameter and comes on the equally iconic presidential bracelet. This bracelet was created especially for the launch of this prestigious Oyster Perpetual Day-Date in 1956, like I said earlier. And this three-piece link presidential bracelet is still reserved exclusively for the Day-Date and precious metal versions of the Datejust. I particularly like the new update on the Day-Date. I feel like the fluted bezel adds more character and depth to this model. It's a small and subtle update from Rolex, which is what Rolex is known for. Perhaps Rolex's most adventurous release at this year's Watches and Wonders is probably the new Oyster Perpetual Datejust 31mm that is coming with a striking new flower motif dials. The flower motif dials on the new Datejust 31 are bursting with fresh energy, combining three different finishes: sunray, matte, and grained. The high technology finishing techniques were required to create this motif, a shining example of refined dial making expertise. The textural effects are further enhanced by 24 diamonds of different sizes, which illuminate the center of each flower. The Oyster Perpetual Datejust 31 is offered in three versions: a white rolex version combining oyster steel and white gold with an azure blue floral motif dial, a flooded bezel, and an oyster bracelet, an 18-karat yellow gold version with an olive green flower motif dial, a bezel set with 46 diamonds, and a presidential bracelet, and finally a third version, which is the Ever Rose Rolex version combining oyster steel and Ever Rose gold, with a silver flower motif dial, a bezel set again with 46 diamonds, and a jubilee bracelet. The Datejust is just the archetype of the classic watch according to Rolex, thanks to the functions and the aesthetics that never go out of fashion. It was launched initially in 1945, and it was the first self-winding waterproof chronometer wristwatch to display the date in a window at 3 o'clock, and consolidated all the major innovations that the brand had contributed to the modern wristwatch until then. Just for those of you that might not be familiar with the term Rolex, it's the combination of gold and oyster steel on a Rolex watch. It has been the signature feature of the brand since 1933, when the name was actually registered. It is a meeting of the two metals, one which is noble and one precious. As I said earlier, could we have been expecting better from Rolex with more risk and more innovation? Certainly. But I am far from thinking that this year's releases are disappointing overall. We are now opening the door to new possibilities with the left crown. Will we see Daytonas with left crowns and pushers in the future? What about Submariners? Or is it just going to be a simply short-lived design and collection like we saw for the Tiffany Oyster Perpetual that was already discontinued this year? What is for sure is that this GMT will, no matter what, be very hard to get. As I said earlier, stay tuned for a full review of this watch in hand, normally coming in next month. In the meantime, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We release videos talking watches every week. Have a great day and see you in the next episode.